As well as your common or garden stocks and bonds, a balanced investment portfolio may well include alternative investments. These often higher risk, but potentially higher reward, investments include hedge funds, crowdfunding, art, cryptocurrencies, private equity, and venture capital. But one group of alternative investments that has both a real-world utility and, compared to others, comparatively low risk, is real estate or property. Property investments tend to be considered more slow and stable because apartments and office blocks aren't directly traded on an exchange, even if big property-owning companies can be. This helps insulate real estate from daily swings in value. UK commercial real estate saw total returns of 6% in 2018, and UK residential real estate, houses and apartments, returned around 3%, although there were regional variations, naturally. If you are a beginner of invest in property in UK, you have chosen the best video to know about invest in property in UK. This is a guidance for startup investing property in UK. Let's go to the video and dig deeper. Why invest in property? As the owner of a property, you stand to benefit from any rise in its value, when it comes to selling, from the income it can generate, if you rent to tenants, and, of course, from the utility you get from living in, or using it yourself. Interestingly, the attractiveness of property ownership is partly dependent on culture. In the UK, for example, individual ownership is fetishized. An Englishman's home is his castle. But in countries like France and Germany, the idea of someone not owning any real estate isn't unusual at all. What about real estate stocks? Easy their partner. Yup, some investors may prefer to invest in real estate via the stock market, buying shares in companies, which own properties and act as landlords, generating income in the form of rent. Because they're listed companies, of course, the values of their stocks are subject to daily swing. But these companies are also asset-backed, they own real estate which investors can see and touch, which has a relatively stable value, and which the company can sell, if it needs additional cash. That means their investors should be less likely to take flight in times of market turbulence, than if they were backing, say, some tech companies whose assets aren't as tangible. Traditional buying. Buying a property that you live in is an investment, since you benefit from any increase in the property's value over time. But you can't live in more than one place at once. Let's turn our attention for a moment to buying a domestic property that you intend to rent out. With such an investment, you aim to make money in two different ways. Through growth in the property's value, and through rental income that exceeds any mortgage payments. A mortgage is a long-term loan secured against the real estate you want to buy. Benefits. One of the key benefits of investing in property via buy-to-let is control. As the owner, you decide the fate of your investment. If and when to sell, how much rent to charge, and what shade to paint the front door. You're also generating rental income over time, and if you have long-term tenants, it's a relatively stable source of income. One of the reasons buy-to-let is very popular among retirees. And, of course, if your property increases in value, you stand to make substantial gains if you choose to sell. Drawbacks. The large deposit often needed to buy a house or apartment can, of course, be off-putting. With buy-to-let purchases, the typical deposit required in the UK is 25% of the property's price. An average property in London, for example, would require a £118,000 deposit, too pricey for the average Brit, especially if you're paying a mortgage to keep a roof over your own head. And then there's stamp duty to consider. Buying via the stock market. One popular way to invest in property is through real estate investment trusts, or REITs. These were introduced in the UK in 2007, to provide an easier way for people to invest in property, and many are listed on the stock market. At least 75% of a REIT's profits must come from property rental, as opposed to building, and they're required to distribute 90% of their property rental income to investors as dividends. This reliable form of income, since tenants' leases are often agreed for years ahead, can make REITs an attractive investment. REITs typically own large portfolios of commercial property, providing investors with some diversification. But ultimately, the types of properties they own are key to their performance as an investment. For example, real estate investment trust SEGRO focuses on properties like warehouses, vital infrastructure for booming e-commerce operations, which have led to it growing earnings in recent years. On the other hand, over 50% of British Land's income comes from retail tenants, and many of those in its monster malls are being frequented less and less by shoppers. There are two types of REITs to be aware of, each with different features. Open-ended REITs don't have a set number of shares, new shares are created for buyers, whose money is added to the trust. When they sell, those shares disappear. One key risk is that several large sellers at once could force the REIT to sell off properties, in order to free up cash to return to investors. Closed-end REITs, by contrast, have a fixed number of shares, like most public companies which get onto the stock market through an initial public offering. Buying via private funds. Investors who prefer to avoid the stock market might look to get involved in a private property fund. These pool together individual investors' money to buy real estate, managed by a team which charges investors a fee, and often a portion of any profit, for the privilege. Such funds aren't very accessible to the average investor, with large minimum amounts required precluding all but the wealthiest of individuals from participating. Investors in property funds typically agree to having their money tied up for a set amount of time, so this option offers less liquidity than if they'd invested in a publicly traded REIT, in which investors can buy and sell shares at will. Capital. How much cash do you have to invest in property? Historically, you needed enough money for a deposit to begin your journey up the property ladder, by purchasing a property directly. But today, there are platforms which enable you to become a property investor with much smaller sums, in some cases as little as £100. Time. As with investing in general, you can choose to be very hands-on, hands-off, or a mix of the two. Active property investment involves buying a property yourself, maintaining its upkeep, and managing tenants, as well as their often numerous demands. Passive property investors pay professionals to acquire and manage properties for them. And if you're upstairs, downstairs you might buy a property yourself, but pay someone to deal with your tenants when the plumbing packs up. Risk. How can you best fit property into a balanced investment portfolio? In practice, the vast expense involved in traditional ownership of bricks and mortar means it can easily end up accounting for the lion's share of your investments. Even the uber-rich have a chunky 21% of their money tied up in physical property, excluding main and second homes, according to estate agent Knight Frank's 2019 Wealth Report. Buying a home is a complex and often lengthy process, but if you can get your head around the basics of how it works, you're less likely to be taken by surprise along the way, and your home buying experience will undoubtedly be easier. This video takes you briefly through each step you're likely to make during the home buying process. So, let's go to the video and have a look at those steps. 1. Save for a mortgage deposit. You'll usually need to build up a deposit of at least 5% of the price of the property you want to buy. For example, If you wanted to buy a house worth £200,000, with a 95% mortgage, you would put down £10,000 of your own money, and borrow the remaining £190,000. But it's often worth saving more, if you can bear to wait longer, as a bigger deposit means you can apply for mortgage deals, with lower interest rates. 2. Find out how much mortgage you can borrow. The amount a mortgage provider will lend you will depend on various things, including the size of your deposit, your income, and your credit score. If you're buying a property with other people, the lender will also take their finances into account. Remember to budget for the additional costs of buying a property, such as conveyancing, surveys, and depending on the cost of the property, and whether you're a first-time buyer, stamp duty. 3. Research your chosen area. If you're exploring towns or neighborhoods you haven't lived in before, it can be worth spending a night or two in a local band to check out the commute, shops, restaurants, and general atmosphere. Even if you've lived in the area all your life, it's important to do some digging on the area you want to buy in, before signing on the dotted line. Things to look into include school catchment areas, transport links, local infrastructure plans, flood zones, development applications, crime levels. 4. Apply for a mortgage agreement in principle. A mortgage agreement in principle, AIP, is a confirmation from a mortgage lender that they would, in principle, be willing to lend you a certain amount. It can also be known as a decision in principle, DIP, or mortgage promise. Having an AIP can make you a more attractive buyer, as it shows the seller and their estate agent that you will be able to secure the amount of money you need to buy the property. 5. Register with estate agents. Once you've chosen the area, or areas, where you're interested in buying a home, register with local estate agents in the area. Registering is free and won't create any obligation on your part. 6. View properties in person. You'll inevitably spend plenty of time browsing Rightmove and Zoopla, but it's important to view properties in person, as well as online. Viewing homes in real life will give you a deeper understanding of their potential, or lack of it, and you'll be able to gauge whether they give you that indescribable feeling that you can't really get from a screen. When you find somewhere you like, it's worth viewing it more than once, and at different times of the day, as you're more likely to notice potential problems. 7. Make an offer on a house or flat. It's quite common to offer less than the asking price. But if other people are interested in the property, you may need to offer the asking price, or more. Looking at how many other similar properties in the same neighborhood have recently sold for will help you work out how much the property is worth. You can find this information on websites such as Zoopla and the Land Registry. Once you've decided how much to offer, you can tell the estate agent over the phone or in person, but it's worth putting it in writing too. Mention any points that stand in your favor. For example, if you're a chain-free first-time buyer, and say that your offer is subject to a survey and the property being taken off the market. This can reduce the chances that you'll be galumped. 8. Apply for a mortgage. You'll need to think about what type of mortgage you want to apply for example, a fixed-rate mortgage or a tracker, and how long you want to spend paying your mortgage off. Known as the mortgage term, 25 years is the norm. 9. Find a conveyancer or property solicitor. Conveyancing is the legal process that takes place after your offer is accepted. In England and Wales, this includes carrying out searches, drawing up and checking contracts, dealing with the land registry, and paying any stamp duty. Buying a house in Scotland works in a slightly different way. You can use a conveyancer, who might not be a qualified solicitor, but will definitely specialize in property, or a solicitor, who you should check, has recent experience in property law. 10. Get a property survey. Property surveys help to assess the condition of the building, and detect structural problems. Although a survey is optional, it's better to be aware of any issues before buying, so you can make an informed decision on how much to offer, and budget for any repair work required. A survey could also enable you to either negotiate the purchase price down, or ask the seller to fix any problems. Most surveyors provide 3 levels of the survey: a condition report, a homebuyer's report, and a building survey. The cost will depend on the location, size, and type of property. Don't confuse the valuation survey, conducted by your mortgage lender, with a house survey. They are 2 different things, and you should always have your own survey done independently. 11. Research removal companies. If you don't have a lot of furniture to move into your new property, you could hire a removal van yourself. But if you have a lot to move, removal companies can help make the process easier. Removal company costs will depend on the number of items you need to move, and the distance to your new property, among other things. 12. Arrange home insurance. It's vital that you have buildings insurance in place on your new home from the day you exchange contracts. In fact, most mortgage providers will make this a condition of lending. This is because you are legally bound to buy the property from the moment contracts are exchanged, so if the building were to be flooded or burned down before the day of completion, and you weren't insured, you wouldn't be covered. 13. Exchange contracts. The exchange of contracts happens when the buyer and seller's legal representatives swap signed contracts, and the buyer pays the deposit. Before the exchange of contracts, you'll need to have several things prepared in advance, such as a written mortgage offer, an agreed completion date, and buildings insurance in place from the day of exchange, or from completion if you're buying a new build. After you've exchanged contracts, you can breathe a sigh of relief, as the agreement for you to buy the property is now legally binding. The chances of anything falling through from this moment are extremely low. 14. Complete and move in. Completion often takes place around 2 weeks after exchange, but this is flexible, and you can agree with a convenient date with the seller. On completion day, the money will be transferred to the seller, and you can then collect the keys from the estate agent, and move into your new home. Next comes the much more enjoyable task of starting to furnish and decorate the property to your taste, and maybe even taking a moment to simply relax. You'll have earned it. In a real estate boom, homebuyers will clamor for almost any house that hits the market. This is great while it lasts, but when the party's over, only homebuyers who choose the best locales will be holding the most valuable property, that also depreciates at a much slower rate. This difference in value is largely a result of a home's location. A good location can mean different things to different people, of course, but there are also objective factors that determine a home's value. Depending on your personal needs and preferences, you may not be able to buy a home with all of these factors. And that's okay. After all, a home is much more than just an investment. However, the next time you're shopping for a new property, keep the following factors in mind. These are the 5 factors of a good location you should think of when you are buying property. So let's go to the video to dig deeper. 1. Centrality. Where you choose to live in a city or town will undoubtedly affect how much you pay for your home. The land is a finite commodity, So cities like San Francisco that are highly developed, and don't have much room for additional growth, tend to have higher prices than cities that have too much room to expand. Some of these communities have a large number of homes that are uninhabited in areas that have fallen into disrepair. In most cases, this urban sprawl occurs as a result of population growth, according to data from the U.S. Census Bureau. When sprawling cities experience a population exodus, it's the outlying areas that tend to suffer the most severe declines in property value. This is part of how location impacts the fundamental economic tenet of supply and demand. 2. Neighborhood. The neighborhoods that appeal to you will largely be a matter of personal choice. However, a truly great neighborhood will have a few key factors in common: accessibility, appearance, and amenities. Your neighborhood may also dictate the size of the lot on which your house is built. In terms of accessibility, you should look for a neighborhood that is situated near a city's major transit routes, and that has more than one point of entry. Commuting to and from work is a big part of many people's days, so a house with easy access to roads and public transportation will be more desirable than one that is tucked away and can only be accessed by one route. The appearance of the neighborhood is also important. Large trees, quality landscaping, and nearby parks or community spaces tend to be desirable. You can also judge the popularity of the neighborhood based on how long homes in that area stay on the market. If turnover is quick, you're not the only one who thinks this is a desirable place to live. A great neighborhood should also include important amenities, such as grocery stores, shops, and restaurants. Most people like to frequent places that are convenient. If you have to drive a great distance to get to anything, it's likely to make your house less attractive. Schools are another important amenity. Even if you don't have kids, if you want to sell your home in the future, many buyers will be on the lookout for good schools. The quality of local schools and their distance from your house are both important factors to consider. Finally, don't forget safety. A neighborhood that has a low crime rate and is an inviting and safe place to be outdoors and socialize with neighbors is the type of place where most people want to live. 3. Development. It is not just the present amenities that matter, but future ones as well. Plans for new schools, hospitals, public transportation, and other civic infrastructure can dramatically improve property values in the area. Commercial development can also improve property values. When you're shopping for a home, try to find out whether any new public, commercial, or residential developments are planned, and consider how these additions might affect the desirability of the surrounding areas. A property's close proximity to a fire station, hospital, school, or community center can lower its value because of traffic and noise. 4. Lot location. You also need to take into consideration where the house is actually located. In this instance, there are a few things you should keep in mind as you conduct your search. If the house you want to buy is right on a busy road, or very close to a highway, you can probably get it for a lower price, but it will also be more difficult to sell later on. The same may hold true for houses that stand next to or back onto a commercial property, such as a grocery store or gas station, or houses on streets that get an unusual amount of parking traffic and parked cars, such as those near large churches or community centers. Alternatively, a house with a wonderful view or near a body of water is likely to be more valuable, both now and when it comes time to sell it. 5. The house itself. There's one aspect of house hunting that tends to surprise people. Let's say you've narrowed your choices to 2 homes that stand side by side in a great neighborhood. One needs repairs and updates, but has a huge lot. The other is in tip-top shape, but sits on a lot half the size of the fixer-upper. The prices of the 2 homes are similar. Which do you choose? In most cases, the house in need of repairs is the better investment. The reason: your house is a depreciating asset. The lot, on the other hand, will maintain its value relative to the house. If you bulldozed both houses, the larger lot would sell for more. So, if you can, choose a bigger, better shaped, or better situated lot over a nicer house. A less attractive house can always be updated, added on to, or replaced altogether, but the lot can't change. All the factors in the list above are important when it comes to identifying a property with a great location. However, finding out whether a property has these desirable qualities can require quite a bit of research. There are several techniques that can help you pick a desirable home location. If you are thinking of moving to a new neighborhood, or simply buying property in one, it's important to recognize that the locals are an invaluable source of knowledge. Mention to someone in a local coffee shop that you are looking to buy in the area, and you'll find that people are more than willing to share knowledge and insights. For the same reason, it can be useful to book viewings with a few local real estate agents, even if you don't intend to use their services. As professionals who work in the industry, they will be able to give you pointers as to the most desirable locations in the area. They will also claim, of course, that their properties are all in great locations, so take what they say with a grain of salt. When you've narrowed down your property or location list to a few candidates, there is no substitute for research. For each property you are considering, run through the factors above. Research which schools cover the location, how close the nearest supermarket is, and how a millennial professional would get to the nearest office district. Note all this down, and only then make a decision about the very best location for your home or investment. All property investors are keen to see what 2022 holds. But before we look to the year ahead, we need to take time to reflect on the current market. 2019 has revolved heavily around Brexit. Britain's planned withdrawal from the EU has dominated the media for months, and has had a major impact on the property market. If there's one thing the property market dislikes, it's uncertainty. However, as we look ahead to 2022, the UK remains a good choice as a property investment location. It has been a hotspot for many overseas buyers for a number of years, and looks set to remain high on investors' wish lists, both overseas and domestic, in the new year. Traditionally, the UK property investment market has centered on London. However, in 2022 and beyond, we will see other cities and regions drawing in investors, hoping to get a good return on their money. What will be the best places to invest? Which cities will be the best? What is your idea about the property investment locations in the UK? Let's go to the video and see what are the best UK property investment locations for 2022. If you're looking at the best rental yields in the UK, the rule of thumb tends to be the further north you go, the better the yield. However, landlords in the north of the country also experience the highest void periods. According to Simply Business, up to 53% of northern landlords had void periods in 2018, and tenant demand can be a challenge. However, there are plenty of great locations for buy-to-let investment in the UK. Data from UK Property Development and investment firm 7 Capital identifies the top 10. Let's see the list of great locations for property investment in the UK. 1. Birmingham. Top of the list for overall property investment is Birmingham. In 2020, the city attracted the highest number of foreign direct investments, outside London and the southeast. After London, Birmingham's growth has outpaced all other cities, meaning homes are highly sought after. 2. Manchester. The city attracts young professionals and families aplenty, and is one of the most exciting places to live and work in the UK. Manchester has also attracted much investment, transformed its skyline and kept rental yields strong. 3. Liverpool. Liverpool has among the highest rental yields for buy-to-let in the UK, with L7 and L1 postcodes regularly achieving yields of 8.2% and 8% over the past 5 years. With new developments, great career opportunities, and rising tenant demand, the city remains a top investment destination. 4. Sheffield. Housing in Sheffield is at the lower end of the scale, compared to other UK cities, and it offers great opportunities for first-time investors. Rental yields an average 7.3%, and the revamp of the city's shopping district has greatly improved amenities and, in turn, its appeal. 5. Leeds. The population of Leeds is growing 7 times faster than that of London, meaning there's a real undersupply of homes. A key destination within the Northern Powerhouse, and nearly £7 billion of development in the pipeline, Leeds city centre is set to double in size. Definitely one to watch. 6. Leicester. With growth of 250% since 2010, Leicester is a buy-to-let property hotspot. House prices are cheaper than other regional cities, and there are more tenants than homes. As a result, there's huge scope for growth. 7. Nottingham. Centrally located in the UK, Nottingham offers direct access to many key destinations, and is a popular choice with investors. Prices have increased nearly 20% since 2016, and as the city continues to develop, so too will this growth. 8. Oxford. Oxford is an appealing option for investors for many reasons: its history, world-famous educational institutes, and strong economy, to name a few. Property price growth may have slowed in the past 3 years, but it still ranks third for overall growth in the UK over the past decade. 9. Cardiff. One of the UK's fastest growing cities, recent regeneration and infrastructure improvements mean better connectivity and job growth. Average rental yields are between 4 to 6%, and a rapidly growing population means demand for housing will continue to rise in the year ahead. 10. London. When it comes to investment opportunities, it's hard to ignore the capital. Over the last decade, prices have soared, and the city has seen the fastest growth in the UK in most areas. Its ever-growing population means there will be no shortage of demand in 2022. However, it also has some of the highest property prices in the UK, making high net worth home insurance all the more important. Let's have a look why you should invest in these cities. Especially why you should invest in property in the UK. The property business is a financially rewarding and exciting business. It can produce a consistent income, even once you have retired. Historically, property prices have been on a strong upward trend since the 1970s, despite some volatility during the recession and credit crunch. New research has revealed that houses' prices have grown faster in the UK than any other European country. In fact, since 1988 house prices have gone up by a staggering 333%. This represents an average rise of 12.3% per year. Many homeowners have benefited from the rising housing market, and have seen their property increasing in value over the years. No wonder property investment is now seen by many as the best way to provide long-term financial security. 1. House prices will carry on increasing. The UK still has a serious shortage of housing, caused by a number of social and demographic factors. Unlike other European countries, population is expanding significantly, and it is predicted to reach 70 million by 2020 compared to 63.7 million today. More people living in the UK means that the demand for housing will carry on increasing, therefore driving up the price of property for the foreseeable future. According to the Office of National Statistics, there will be an annual shortfall of housing in the UK, of over 100,000 properties each year for the next decade. This could mean a 1 million housing shortfall by 2025, if current trends continue. 2. High rental demand, high rental returns. A number of factors have combined to push up rental demand, including an increase in immigration, more people living alone, and rising house prices stopping first-time buyers onto the ladder. This is excellent news for landlords, who are finding that their buy-to-let properties are being let extremely quickly, while their rental income keeps increasing. 3. Low interest rates. Interest rates have been at an all-time low for 6 years, making borrowing increasingly cheaper. With mortgage payments currently at their lowest, and ever-increasing monthly rent, landlords are enjoying significantly higher rental income, making it an ideal time to invest in the property market in the UK. So, here is why you need to invest in properties in the UK. House flipping has become a lucrative market for many. And with a number of shows dedicated to these endeavors, you may be interested in what it takes to flip a property. But first, what does it mean to flip a house? House flipping is an investment strategy in the real estate market. To flip a house means to buy a house that needs some work, then renovate it, adding value to the home, before putting it back on the market to sell at a higher price. Renovations can include updates to key areas of the house, such as bathrooms, kitchens, basement, and attics. But it could also be much more extensive, including additions, tearing down walls, and even starting from the ground up. A report by Atom Data Solutions highlights that house flipping profits skyrocketed in the final quarter of 2021, providing more opportunities for investors new and old to enter the market and kickstart their journeys in house flipping. If you're interested in flipping, but don't have any experience, there are a number of things to consider, including mistakes that can make or break a project. Before you dive headfirst into flipping homes, it's important to know some common mistakes to avoid. Here we are going to tell you about 5 common home flipping mistakes. Let's go to the video and have a look at those. 1. Overspending or underestimating costs. One of the biggest mistakes people make when flipping houses is not budgeting correctly. Depending on the type of build and renovations, permits, and location, costs can fluctuate extensively. It's always important when entering a house flipping endeavor to budget accordingly, and this means adding into your plans the possibility for unexpected costs. There's only so much information you can gather about a property, its potential, and its integrity from an initial inspection. Even if you involve several specialized inspectors, there are often issues beneath the surface that can crop up later. For instance, plumbing, electrical, and structural issues aren't always immediately apparent. And often, these issues only surface once renovations are underway. Before you settle on a property and make your offer, make sure you have the budget and the flexible capabilities to handle unpredictable financial obstacles. 2. Hiring underqualified professionals. When flipping a house, repairs are a necessity. It's these repairs, upgrades, and redesigns that turn a regular property into a house someone can truly see as their own. But repairs cost time and money. That's why it's important to work with licensed professionals, with the specialized skills needed to complete these tasks, up to proper standards. It can be tempting to save money by hiring a cheaper, less qualified professional. But work done by an unqualified person could lead to additional repairs down the road. It could also lead to work that takes longer to complete, resulting in additional costs, when you can't sell the property within the original timeline. 3. Lack of time investment. Do-it-yourself shows might make it seem as though flipping a home is a quick and easy job, when the reality is flipping homes requires a large time commitment that can fluctuate greatly. Flipping a home can be a time-consuming venture from your first offer, through inspections, contract battling, and closing. All of that happens before you get into the home to start renovations. According to Zillow, only 55% of buyers actually finalize their deal on their first offer. Reaching a deal can take time. But first, you have to find the right property. This stage of the process could take weeks, and even months. It depends largely on the market, available properties, budget, and liquidity of assets. It's important to be realistic about the job at hand, plan ahead, and leave buffer room in your timeline for unforeseen issues. In addition, you'll need time for the final inspections, to make sure everything is up to code. And after everything has been cleared, you still have to sell. According to Zillow, in 2020 homes sat on the market for an average of 25 days, before going under contract. In a National Association of Realtors May 2021 report, the time on market had decreased to about 17 days, but this number can change greatly based on numerous factors. A property can sit on the market for 1 day, 60 days, or longer before it's sold. And then, closing is not an immediate process. From accepted offer to close typically takes at least a month, and can take significantly longer depending on the seller's or buyer's situation. Housing market conditions are fluid, and can vary greatly, even within the same geographic market. Therefore, it's important to research your market, and be realistic about how much time you can afford to spend on a project, being sure to factor in the selling process. 4. Not knowing the impact of housing market trends. When flipping a home, the housing market's trends and forecasts should be taken into consideration, to understand the profitability of a project. What's a seller's market? In real estate, a seller's market occurs when the number of homebuyers exceeds the number of homes that are currently up for sale. In other words, the demand exceeds the supply. This means that house prices go up, and competition increases between buyers, as the available inventory of houses for sale falls short of demand. This can lead to bidding wars that drive up home prices, creating a lucrative market for sellers. What's a buyer's market? The opposite of a seller's market is a buyer's market. In real estate, a buyer's market occurs when the number of homes exceeds the number of buyers looking to purchase, supply exceeds demand. This requires sellers to lower asking prices, provide incentives, or give credits to buyers since they are in competition with the other sellers in their area. These two concepts are incredibly important to understand for those flipping homes. It can be enticing to buy a home to flip, when you're experiencing a buyer's market, but these trends can last months and even years, meaning you could fall victim to the same prices you benefited from when purchasing a property. Similarly, it's important to pay attention to the Federal Reserve, also commonly referred to as the Fed. The Federal Reserve can provide insights into interest rate fluctuations that impact the ability of buyers to get the loans necessary to secure purchases. There are a number of factors that can impact the housing market, from elections, interest rate cuts, new legislation, and current events. If you're planning on purchasing a home to flip, be sure to have a good understanding of the dynamics of the housing market, in order to inform the buying and selling process. 5. Not selling the home at the right price. A very common mistake for people new to flipping is setting the wrong price on a house. Picking the right price can be difficult for anyone, especially for flipping newcomers. And choosing the correct price depends on how much you've put into the house, and how much the market will pay. Buyers consider factors such as location, school district, local amenities, and taxes when purchasing a home. If the price is too high, your property can sit on the market longer than you had hoped, costing you time and money chip away at potential profits. Additionally, leaving a home on the market for too long can send red flags to buyers looking to make a deal. One way to ensure you're pricing a property appropriately is to work with an experienced real estate agent. A qualified and experienced agent often knows what it takes to sell a property, and will have knowledge about the location and pricing on comparable homes, which can be immensely helpful to beginners. With these 5 issues in mind, You have a better understanding of some risks involved in flipping homes, and how to help ensure the process is a successful, and hopefully a profitable endeavor. The first walkthrough of a home is when potential owners get that gut feeling and get a chance to compare a home to their wish lists. While you'll know if a potential home meets your basic requirements, from the number of bedrooms to the availability of outdoor space, you won't know every detail of home the first time you view it. Curb spoke with a home inspector and architects who specialize in home renovation to find out what you should look out for during your first walkthrough or an open house. Use their guidelines to help you make an informed assessment of a home's condition. When you're scoping out a new property, it might be easy to be dazzled by great first impressions. We have set out our top 10 tips for getting the most out of your viewing of a potential new property. When you're scoping out a new property, it might be easy to be dazzled by great first impressions, or feel pressured by the presence of others to only have a quick look around. Buying a new property is an important decision that shouldn't be taken lightly, so why shouldn't you get the most out of your viewing? It's your chance to really find out whether or not it's the right place for you, and gives you an opportunity to spot any potential problems down the road. We've put together some tips to help you ensure you're making the most of your viewings. So, let's go to the video and see what are those tips. Check for damp. If the house has signs of damp, this can cause significant problems in the future and lower the overall value of the property. Check for flaky plaster and watermarked walls, especially around ceilings and skirting boards. If a room has been recently repainted, this could be a sign that damp is being covered up. Storage space. Think about all of your furniture and belongings. Does this property look like it has enough room, or will it end up being cluttered and cramped? Practical things such as hoovers and cleaning materials need to go somewhere. Is there space for extra shelving? Room for guests. One of the perks of having your own home is the scope for having friends and family over. Is there a good living room, dining room, or large kitchen? If you're looking forward to entertaining guests, make sure you have space for them first. Bring a second opinion. If you can, bring someone along to view the property with you. Two heads are better than one, and your companion might spot things you have missed and can give a neutral and pragmatic perspective if needed. What about outside? How do the front and back areas look? Are the paths cracked, or are things in disrepair? Check the exterior pipe and drainage situation, and make sure that there aren't any potential issues that you may have to face down the line. Take your time. Don't feel pressured by other viewers or the homeowner. This is your chance to see the property for yourself, so take the time to explore everything you can to get a feel for the place, and whether or not you want to live there. Leave time to check out the nearby streets and the local neighborhood for a better overall impression. Ask questions. This is your chance to ask the questions that matter. If the current owner has nothing to hide, it shouldn't be a problem. Bring a list if it will help you remember. Ask everything you can think of, such as why the property is available, how long it's been on the market, what the neighbors are like, and how old the roof is. Test things out. Don't be shy to go around and test out the little things. For instance, turn on taps to see how good the water pressure is, open windows to see if they have been fitted properly, and generally have a good poke around. It might seem a little awkward, but the little things also matter. If you're new to the area, it's also a good idea to test how long it might take for you to make the school run, or to get to the nearest transport links. If you can, talk to the neighbors as well, to get a better feeling of the community and atmosphere. Be pragmatic. It can be quite easy to walk into what seems like the perfect home, and envision your life there. If that happens, half the battle is won, but don't let that stop you from looking for the things that can turn the dream into a nightmare. This also works the other way. Don't let a few small or superficial issues put you off what could be a beautiful new home. If you have a vision and the property seems suitable, you can work through them and create your ideal home. Go back for a second look. With so many things to think about, covering all of the points in one viewing might not be so easy, so going back for a second look is always a good idea. There might have been something you missed, or maybe it wasn't as good as you first thought on further reflection. Going back for a second look can either confirm your first impressions or change them completely. So, there you have it. The above are just a few ideas for you to take with you on your next viewing. Remember that you are the buyer, and therefore are totally justified in finding out as much as possible. In this video, we explain 10 useful house viewing tips for buyers. Buying a home is a very emotional process. If you allow those emotions to get the best of you, you may fall prey to a number of common home buyer mistakes. Since homeownership has far-reaching implications, it's important to keep your emotions in check and make the most rational decision possible. Your aim is to end up with a home you love at a price you can afford, but unfortunately, many people do things that prevent them from achieving that dream. Let's look at some of the top house hunting mistakes people make, and how to find a house the right way. Not knowing what you can afford. Once you've fallen in love with a particular place, it's hard to go back. You start dreaming about how great your life would be if you had all the wonderful things it offered, like the lovely tree-lined streets, the jetted bathtub, the spacious kitchen with professional-grade appliances, etc. However, if you can't or won't be able to afford that house, you're just hurting yourself by imagining yourself in it. So, to avoid temptation, it's best to restrict your house shopping to properties in your financial neighborhood. If you look at places that are outside your price range, you'll end up lusting after something you can't afford. That can put you in the dangerous position of trying to stretch beyond your means financially, or cause you to feel unsatisfied with what you actually can buy. Start your search at the low end of your price range. If what you find there satisfies you, there's no need to go higher. Remember, when you spend another $10,000 to buy a home, you're not just paying an extra $10,000, you're paying an extra $10,000 plus interest, which might come out to double that amount, or more over the life of your loan. You may be better off putting that money towards something else. Skipping mortgage pre-approval. As we all should have learned from the subprime mortgage crisis, what the bank says you can afford, versus what you know you can afford, or are comfortable with paying, are not necessarily the same. Conversely, what you think you can afford, and what the bank is willing to lend you may not match up, especially if you have poor credit, or unstable income. Make sure to be pre-approved for a loan before placing an offer on a home, or even before you go house hunting in earnest. If you don't, you'll be wasting the seller's time, the seller's agent's time, and your agent's time if you sign a contract, and then discover later that the bank won't lend you what you need, or that it's only willing to give you terms you find unacceptable. The pre-approval process can also help you locate the aforementioned financial neighborhood for your house hunting expeditions. Be aware that even if you have been pre-approved for a mortgage, your loan can fall through at the last minute if you do something to alter your credit score, such as finance a car purchase. If your actions cause the deal to die, you may have to forfeit any deposit or earnest money you put up when you entered into the contract. Not shopping around. While you should be realistic in your search, and willing to compromise to some degree, don't cave on important things. For example, don't get a 2-bedroom home, when you know you're planning to have kids and will want 3 bedrooms. By the same token, don't buy a condo, just because it's cheaper than a house, if one of the main reasons you're over apartment life is that, you hate sharing walls with neighbors. It's true that, you'll probably have to make some compromises to be able to afford your first home, but don't make a compromise that will be a major strain. Unless you are a high-end buyer looking at custom homes, chances are that for any home you find that you like, there are quite a few others that are close to it. Most neighborhoods have multiple homes that are similar or the same model. They may have all been constructed by the same builder. Even if you can't find an identical model for sale, you can probably find a house with many of the same features. If you're considering a condo or townhouse, the odds are also in your favor. Being open to continuing your search will save you from making rash decisions you might regret later. There are plenty of real estate websites and apps that can help you streamline the house hunting process, making it possible to preview hundreds of homes within a few hours, from the comfort of your couch. Not using an agent. Once you're seriously shopping for a home, don't walk into an open house without having a real estate agent or broker. Agents are held to the ethical rule that they must act in both the seller's and the buyer's best interests. But you can see how it might not put you in the best bargaining position if you start dealing with a seller's agent before contacting one of your own. Lacking vision. Sometimes a home buyer can feel like Goldilocks in the Three Bears house. This is too big, this is too small. Distinguishing between what's fixable and what's not is a key part of house hunting. Even if you can't afford to replace that hideous wallpaper in the bathroom right now, it might be worth it to live with the ugliness for a while, in exchange for getting into a house you can afford. If the home otherwise meets your needs in terms of the big things that are difficult to change, such as location and size, don't let physical imperfections turn you away. At the same time, don't be snowed by minor upgrades and cosmetic fixes. These are inexpensive tricks that sellers use to play on your emotions and elicit a much higher price tag. Sellers may pay $2,000 for minimal upgrades, or fork over several $1,000s on staging. Besides, doing home upgrades yourself, even when you have to hire a contractor, is often cheaper than paying the increased home value to a seller who has already done the work for you. And you can do them according to your taste, not someone else's. Overlooking important flaws. Look for homes whose full potential has yet to be realized, especially if you're on a strict budget. The bump in equity from your upgrades will help you to move up the property ladder. That being said, if you're going to buy a house that needs work, don't buy a fixer-upper that's more than you can handle in terms of time, money, or your own ability. For example, if you think you can do the work yourself, then realize you can't once you get started. Any repairs or upgrades you were planning to make will probably cost twice as much once you factor in the labor, and that may not be in your budget. Furthermore, you would have to consider the costs involved to fix anything you may have started, including replacing materials you wasted. Honestly evaluate your abilities, your budget, and how soon you need to move before purchasing a property that isn't move-in ready. Buying a house is a big decision, but it does not have to be difficult. However, since it's so natural for emotions to come into play, you need to ensure you are making rational choices, rather than getting wrapped up in the notion of a dream home, or conversely, of yourself as a master builder. If you're aware of the issues ahead of time, you can protect yourself from costly mistakes and shop with confidence. In short, when it comes to buying a new home, be realistic, take your time, don't act on impulse, and, ultimately, make a home purchase decision that's good for both your feelings and your finances. In this video, we discuss top house hunting mistakes. If you got this video helpful, please give a thumbs up to the video. Don't forget to share this with your friends. Subscribe to the channel for more important videos like this. Thanks for watching.